Hi, I'm Leo and welcome to my YouTube channel Scodemy. This is my fourth video on CSS3, and in this video I'll talk about the class, the ID in another kind of selector called the Contextual Selector. Now, like I said in my first video, that a selector points to the HTML elements that you want to style up. Let's say I want to style up my paragraph. I'll go to my CSS file and I'll put my selector, which would be P, and then I'll open up my curly braces. Let's say I want the font size to be 30 pixel. I'll put a font size and I'll put a value of 30 pixel. And let's say I want the color to be red. I will put a color and set it to red. Now when I save and go back to my browser, you will notice that the style has been added to all my paragraph except the last one. The last one is still blue. Now this brings me to the contextual selectors. Now when you go back to my code, you would notice I have a paragraph and I have another tag inside this paragraph, the anchor tag. So whenever you want to style up an element that is nested in another element, you use the contextual selector. So you can see that my anchor tag is placed inside my paragraph tag. That's the next thing. So whenever you want to style up a nested element, you use the contextual selector. So I'll go to my CSS file and I'll put the parent, which is P. I'll put a space and I'll put the child, which is A. So I'll open up my curly braces. Now I want to remove the underline, so I'll put a text decoration and I will set it to none. And I also want to give it a color of purple, so I'll put my color and set it to purple. Now when I do this and I save and go back to my browser, you would notice that the style has been added to this last paragraph. Now you would also notice that my first paragraph, the second and the third, they have the same style. So whenever you want to apply a specific style to an element, you use either a class or an ID to target that element. For example, when you go to my code, you would see the HTML file. You'll see that I have a class here, attribute with the name first and an ID with the name second. So whenever you want to style up this class or this ID, you use the class selector or the ID selector for the ID. So I'll go to my CSS file and I'll put a class selector. Now the class selector is preceded by a period or a dot. So I'll put a dot and I'll put the name first and I'll open up my curly braces. Let's say I want to put a color of green. I'll put green. And for the ID, the ID is preceded by the hashtag. So I'll put a hashtag and I'll put the name and I'll open up my curly braces. Let's say I want to give it a color of blue. So I'll put my color, put my column and I'll put blue. Now when I save and go back to my browser and reload, you would see that the specific styles have been added to these elements. Now you would also note that the class and the IDs, they are case sensitive. So if I come here and I put a capital letter and save, when I go back to my browser and reload, you would see that the style is no longer there. So you have to take notes that the class and the ID, they are both case sensitive. And now you might be wondering, the ID and the class, they do basically the same thing, so which do I use? Now first you have to note that the ID has more weight. That is, the ID will overrule any class. So whenever you're designing or you're making your codes and you want to reuse your CSS file, it's best you go with the class, because the class can be reused, whereas the ID is unique and can be used only once per page. Alright guys, in this video I talked about the contextual selectors, and I told you it is used to style up an element that is nexted in another element. And I talked about the class and the ID. I told you that the class selector is preceded by a dot or a period, and the ID selector is preceded by the hashtag. Alright, thanks guys for watching, and if you enjoyed this video or you want me to continue to post here, please subscribe and I will see you in my next video. Thanks and have a lovely day.